Hey guys, my name is Amanpreet Singh and welcome back to Dental Secrets. Today we have a very special guest, the founder of Dentaltown, Dr. Howard Farran. But before we get started with that video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to our channel. Let's get into it. Howard, thank you so much for being on with us.
Aman, it's an honor to be on your show. Congratulations, buddy.
Thank you so much. So I thought we were just going to dive right into it. So Howard, I want to talk about general dentists today. So I know you're really involved in the business side of dentistry. And for a younger dentist who's just trying to get in the business side of dentistry today, it seems like there's a lot more threats than 20, 30 years ago. You know, there's a lot of competition with DSOs or battling with inflation. And I just want to know, what is your advice for a younger general dentist out there who's trying to get on the business side of things?
Well, first of all, life is not easy. Life is just hard, and it's just one day at a time. It's just survival. I mean, I always remind myself that, if we look in the rearview mirror, 98.5% of all the species went extinct. Humans have only been going on for 200,000 years. I mean, and when dentists tell me that it's tough, I want to stop you in your tracks. So when I was a little kid, after World War II, after what happened in World War II, the United States wouldn't let any cars in from Japan and Germany. They were bad people at that time, right? And so America had that political monopoly, and GM had half the market. GM, Chrysler, and Ford sold 80% of all the cars. GM sold half, and they were horrible. When I was a little kid, on Saturday, when you walk down the street, every third car garage, it was like a dad, his brother, his uncle trying to get some piece of crap Ford or Chevy to start working again. What were some of those nicknames for Ford? It stood for something like I forgot, but my dad used to say that if you walk down the street jiggling a chain, all the Fords would jump out of the garage thinking it was a tow truck coming to get them.
Oh my God.
And that you shouldn't be able to buy a Chevy unless it came with a full-time mechanic in the trunk. So there's no competition. So then they lifted the veils of competition. And once Germany and Japan started having all these cars come in, now GM went from 50% of the market down to 15%. And guess what? I just bought a new car yesterday or last week, a new Lexus. My last one made it from 2004 to 2021. So that's like 17 years, 180,000 miles. When I was your age, there wasn't one Chevy or Ford that made it 180,000 miles in the history of their company. So competition is everything. So when dentists tell me that it's competitive, you can't say that with a straight face, because like I'm on the border with Mexico, right? Arizona and Mexico. And you go down to Yuma, Arizona, and you cross into Mexico, and it's called Molar City. And all it is a bunch of Americans from Arizona driving 3 hours down to the border to go get dentistry that's half off. And in my 30 years, every time one of those Mexican dentists who went to the greatest universities in Mexico City, when they sneak in here and set up practice in Guadalupe, oh my God, the mafia is tipped off, and they send their mobster police and they arrest them and kidnap. I don't know about you, but my mom told me that you shouldn't kidnap people. You shouldn't handcuff them. You shouldn't put them in a cage. I don't know if it was different at your house, but
I think that was a given in my house. So.
Yeah, and they arrest them and put them in a cage and try to put them in jail. And then they make headlines like "Woman in Florida caught practicing dentistry without a license." Complete propaganda.
Yeah.
She went to dental school in Russia. She was great in Russia. Her husband's a dentist. They're kicking ass, but they didn't get their Nazi government paperwork in order for the State Board of Dental Restricted Competition. I guarantee you, it's kind of funny because America always makes the right decision when it's exhausted every other opportunity possible, and it's the only choice left. And it's funny how we're going from build a wall to now the economy is so bad and they can't fill workers. And right now, the biggest impediment to the economy is freaking employees. I mean, you're having strawberries rot in the field. You're having crops that can't be picked, because when you give $5 trillion of welfare to humans, guess what? I mean, it's like lions. When lions bring down a gazelle and eat the whole gazelle, Well, they don't start working out and lifting weights and running marathon. They just sleep for 3 days.
Exactly.
And then when they're hungry again, they get up and work. So when you give $5 trillion of paper, they're like, hey, we gotta have Cheetos and Dr. Pepper and Mountain Dew to last us for a month. They don't work. But you're probably gonna have to open up that immigration. That's what made America great in the first place, was 500 years of unfettered people just coming to America. So when dentists say they're competition, I guarantee you, I've lectured in 50 countries around the world. I mean, just India alone, just take just India. If the United States opened back up Ellis Island and they told the state boards that, yeah, I believe in the FDA should say, yes, this drug is approved to treat male pattern baldness or prostate cancer or whatever. But they don't do that because they don't care about you. They cross lines and say, oh, but until it's approved, until they pay the $5 million mafia money and go through our protocol to justify 50,000 employees, no one can have this drug. My mansion, I bought my mansion from a lady that was dying of brain cancer, and an American had invented a drug for it. An American pharmaceutical was making it. It was on an FDA program. She couldn't get the drug. She tried to go get on the drug. She couldn't get it. So she sold her house to me and moved it to Denmark, Scandinavia, where they had been selling it for the last 5 years, because in these intelligent countries, they say, hey, Aman, you're dying of cancer. There's no cure. Would you like to try the best idea we've got? Would you sit there and say, no, I want this, I want to test it on rats for 5 years, and I want to see what the rats say for, I mean, it's criminal. The United States government is just a mafia, mobster, criminal, whatever. But if they said the state board, like, I would want to go to the state board, like, say I was going to have an operation. I was going to have a prostate surgery or something like that. All I want is transparency. I want to know, is he really a doctor? Where did he go? I don't care if the United States of America, Arizona Department of Examiners gave him his paperwork. I mean, I think a world where everybody has to walk around showing their paperwork to a government agency, I mean, that's straight out of an Orwellian deal. Now they're talking about passport or vaccine passports. How about a passport that you work for the government, and if you talk to anybody, you have to pull out a piece of paper and show them that you work for the government. That's the only passport I think they need. But the bottom line, if they pass that, there's 2 million dentists around the world. There's 150,000 full-time general dentists, 32 hours a week or more, 32,000 specialists, 32 hours a week or more. How many dentists from Mexico would fly up and move into California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, all the way to Florida? How many from just India? How many? I mean, when I go lecture in India, they say, they open up all these private schools. So it's supply and demand. If you double the supply of dentists, you're going to cut their earnings power in half. It's just simple math, right? So a lot of those excess dentists, like when I lecture in Brazil and India, every dentist your age has a dentist job, and then they have an evening or a weekend job as a dentist. Saturday, they're a hygienist, and maybe Friday night and Saturday night, they're a waitress or a bartender. And so when American dentists tell me that it's competitive, I mean, I don't know whether I should laugh or cry. I just want to get out the world's smallest violin and say, dude, you make $100,000 a year on Earth. There's 8 billion people. $100,000 a year is baller money all through Africa, Asia, Central and South America. So you only make that kind of income because the government aids and abets and gets rid of your competition with their licensing stuff. And that's what governments always do. They first break the system. So healthcare was only 1% of the GDP in the year 1900. And then the Rockefellers, they did this thing where they decided that there were too many doctors that weren't qualified. They always do what they do because they're trying to help you, Amon. And there's some crazy doctors out there. So what we're going to do is have the state set up a state board of medical examiners in every state, and we're the judge, jury, and the executioner. No school can open without our permission. Nobody can get a license without our permission. No one can do anything without the government, and that's the only thing they ever wanted. And then the cost starts creeping up, right? Because they regulate, and it goes from 1% of GDP to 14% of GDP from 1900 to 2000. Then 2000 to 2021, it goes from 14% to 21%, and now the same criminals that broke the system, made it so expensive, like Bernie Sanders saying, well, the system is so broken that now instead of stealing half your money every month, we want to steal 2/3 of all your money to give free broken health care to all the people. And what people don't understand is the government can't give you a solution. The government is the problem. And if they deregulated healthcare, if they opened up Ellis Island and cardiologists and dermatologists and dentists and orthodontists from around the world could just move to America and set up shop, there wouldn't be hardly the average median income for a dentist wouldn't be 150,000 plus. It'd probably be cut in half. So that's not what a dentist doesn't want to hear, because a dentist wants to hear, well, Amon, your dream every night is the same. You wake up, you're the only dentist on earth. 8 billion people standing in line. They bid up the price of a buccal composite to like $2 million. And January 1, you do one buccal pit on 19 for $2 million, and then you take the rest of the year off. So there's also patients, insurance companies, there's government officials, there's schools. 50 million school days are lost a year from kids with a toothache. So it's not competitive at all. It's competitive if you make up a story and believe it's competitive, but no one makes $175,000 a year on average, and you say it's a competitive market.
So I guess, yeah, so we talked about a lot there. I guess my question was more so competitive on the side of competing with corporate versus competing with private practice. Like,
okay, no,
is it worth to start a practice now from scratch versus compared to 30 years ago?
Well, yeah, times are always changing. No doubt about it. I mean, everything's so different in so many different ways, but I would say this, if I go to 50 countries around the world and talk geometry, it's still sine, cosine, tangent. And isosceles always has 3 acute angles. I mean, but when you go to politics, the terminology is so wishy-washy. But when you go back to the original word of socialism, do you know what socialism, when the word first came out, you know what it was? It was that for 5,000 years, the kings would say, hey, Amen, we want half your crop. So they would just send by soldiers, and you made 100 bales of hay, and they take half of them. You grew 10 pigs. They'd always take half your shit. Yeah. Well, when they crossed the line and said, oh, but also we're gonna take your land. We're gonna own your land. So you're gonna be a landless squatter peasant, and then whatever you do on this land, we're gonna still have. That's the line in the sand that caused blood. That's when the farmers would pull out their swords and they'd go down to blood. And socialism meant that the worker owns his means of production. And all I can say is this: if the reason Bill Gates became worth 100 billion is because he made 10,000 Microsoft employees a millionaire in stock. So you got to make 10,000 people a millionaire to be the richest man, Bill Gates. Well, so if you're going to sit there and make a lot more money, you need leverage. And the stats on dental office leverage, you can just look at the macroeconomics and then drill down backwards. So when you look at let me see this. So the average net income for dentists, a dental specialist, is 320. Whereas a general dentist is 197. So you knew from Adam Smith back in 1786, The Wealth of Nations, that the whole world was going to specialization. So nobody, you go to 1900, that doctor would deliver your baby, amputate your leg, clean out your ear, treat every infection. So obviously the young should specialize, not to mention the fact that when you have all these specialties, I mean, my God, how are you going to understand oral surgery, endodontics, perio, pediatric dentist, orthodontics, prosthodontics, dental anesthesiology, oral facial pain, oral med, oral path, oral radiology, dental public health, Jiminy Christmas? When you decide you're just going to be an endodontist, you just got rid of having to stay on top of 11 other damn things. So, and then you're going to make $100,000 a year more because you're specialized. You'll do it faster, easier, higher quality, lower cost. But then the next one is dentists who own their own practices make $245, and dentists who are employees make $145. So there's another 100. So the bottom line is you make another 100 if you specialize, and you make another 100 if you own your means of production.
So that dentist that starts a practice and makes 100,000 more, is that still feasible in today's time for dentists who are just graduating and want to start?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. They always want an excuse of why they're living in their mom's basement at age 40, and it has nothing to do with they smoke pot every morning. It has nothing to do they don't take a
Of course
shower and
not.
bathe. It's always and I'm lucky I'm a man. I really am, because it's always the mom's fault. I don't know what it is, but it's never dad's fault. It's always mom's fault. And I just you see these things are obvious, but the bottom line is the bottom line, it's a game to hustle. But when you're right now and the economy is good. Now you got to remember, I was born in 1962. That was the year of the flash crash. I graduated in 1980 from high school. That's when Paul Volcker, the Federal Reserve, had interest rates up at 20.5% to get rid of inflation that I have not seen since senior year of high school. And now I'm 59 with 8 grandchildren. It's like, oh my God, it's back. Oh my God, it's back. And everybody your age, you never saw it. You don't know what it looks like. You don't know what it smells like. And you're going to get a really good meeting with this little duck called inflation. But the bottom line, I'm not scaremonger, because in 1980, I lived through that. Graduated dental school in 87, 133 days before Black Monday. Y2K, how old were you in the year 2000?
I was 5 years old.
So I'm pretty sure you don't remember Y2K at 5 years old. And then there was Lehman's Day at 2008. But the bottom line is, this bubble it's bigger than any bubble I've seen. And it's a bubble. I mean, you take real estate mortgage rate versus the rental rate. When you can buy this house and the mortgage rate is $3,000 or $2,000, and you can only rent it out at $1,000 a month, it's twice overvalued. Stocks, you look at price earnings, and this isn't just some number you pulled out of your butt. Look at the last, I'm Irish descent. We did our whole family tree. We were part of the Irish diaspora, 1840, came to America before there was Ellis Island. But if you if you didn't have enough money to buy a boat, they'd come over and they'd say, hey, I'll give you a ride, but then you got to work on my farm for 6 to 8 years. And see, that's where price earnings is supposed to be, 6 to 8 years. I'm on. If a kid walked out of 2 dental schools, I got AT Still in Mesa and Glendale, Midwestern. If a kid walked out of school and I said, I'm on, you come work for me at Today's Dental for 6 to 8 years, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And at 6 to 8 years, the whole damn thing's yours. You know how many people would do that? Because if you needed more money, you could get an evening job. You could get a job on Saturday. You could stay at home, whatever. But what if I said to you, Tesla is trading at 1,500 times earnings, which means if you bought the stock at the fall of the Roman Empire, you still haven't got all your money back 1,500 years later. I mean, to think, and then when people say, yeah, but he's doing that Starlink, it's like, dude, that's not even in that stock. I mean, they're just nuts. I mean, people are not, and that's why we have bubbles, because I don't know if you figured this out yet, but there's 8 billion people and they're all wild animals called Homo sapiens, and they're batshit crazy. We're just lucky they can't fly. That's all I'm going to say. To the grand designer, to the gods in the sky, thank you for not giving these monkeys wings, because if they had wings, it'd be twice as crazy. So yeah, true. The real estate bubble is going to pop, this stuff, but it's no big deal when it pops, because the Great Depression, the stock market fell in 29. The Great Depression was 32 to 36. That was 4 years, because they didn't even know what was going on. Now everybody has PhDs in this shit. So it's not going to take 4 years to fix something. They'll probably be more like 18 months to 24 months or whatever. But the bottom line is this: when things are going good and you work for Heartland or Great Expression Dental Centers or whatever, and everything's good, and you don't own your means of production, you're just an extra dentist, and they got 4 dentists, and the economy dives in half and they lose half their business. Guess what you are? You're a disposable labor. And they're like, oh, Aman, guess what? We don't need you today. And we don't give a shit if you miss your car payment, rent payment, phone payment. We don't care if you drop dead and die. Thank you for working for us, and we'll call you back if we ever need.
That's scary.
Yeah. So, and I've seen this in every damn recession, that you have to sit there and own your own means of production. Furthermore,
so let's say a dentist does start owning their own means of production. They start a practice. we talked about insurance and inflation. So inflation, cost of everything is going up. There's a lot of labor shortages in labs because of COVID and everything. So if a dentist wants to compete with inflation and they want to raise their rates, but we have insurance companies, I don't know if you saw Signal has just lowered their rates recently. How do they compete with that?
Well, that's the best question I've heard this month. I mean, that was a great question because let me first explain. I like to teach economics to my 8 grandchildren. Did you ever see Gilligan's Island?
I haven't, but I've heard of it.
Okay, so Gilligan's Island. By the way, we're a little. There's like 7 people stranded on an island they couldn't get off, and there was the skipper and Gilligan. There was the professor. There was Marianne and Ginger, and then Mr. and Mrs. Thurston. But it's like 7 people, and it's a great deal. By the way, a lot of when I was little, you ever met another kid on the playground? He'd said, "So, would you rather marry Ginger or Marianne?" And you didn't know what to say. It was a debate. But now we know the answer was Ginger because she's the only one still alive from that show. So
Okay.
now it's between dead Marianne and Ginger that's still breathing. And but the bottom line is, the economy is that if you let me explain the whole economy. Amon's the only person on Earth. And in 1 year, his total productivity was 1 pint of water, right? And the government, for a medium of exchange, a store of values, has a currency. All these governments have a currency, and they print $1, but the government printed another dollar. So now what happened? Well, now the price is 2. See, the government's figured out they can only take about a third or a half of your money. So Amon makes $2. He pays 1 to the government, and he puts 1, he hides it under the bed, and the government's like, we still want more, but if we go take his other dollar, he'll shoot us. So how do we do it? We'll just print another dollar. If you have $1 under your mattress and I print another dollar, I just stole half your dollar. So inflation is the stock market. This pandemic comes out. The stock market hears that there's a global pandemic, and it drops not even $1 trillion in market cap. It drops about $875 billion. And what was the Trump response plan, and now the Trump Biden response plan? 5 trillion. The economy dips $1 trillion and they print $5 trillion. So now those $5 trillion are floating down. Well, there's only 8 billion people. When you throw, and America is not the only company that did that. Canada did it, all of Europe, everybody turned on their presses at Japan, Bank of Japan, banking. And you know who the biggest one is that no one ever talks about? You know who the biggest counterfeiter is? And by counterfeiting, it means, like people say, well, World War II, we had 100% of the economy in debt. Yeah, but that debt, they go around and the people would get the money out of their mattresses and they go buy war bonds that paid a nickel a year. They don't collect taxes and redistribute it. They quit doing that years ago. Now they're not into collecting taxes and redistributing it. They're just counterfeiting. I don't even know why they have these debates that we should raise taxes on the rich and the poor and the tax rates. Dude, you're paying for everything by counterfeiting, printing money. If you and I did that, if you made 1 Benjamin Amon and you got caught, 20 years in the pen. The government makes $1 billion a day. But the bottom line is, you have all this money coming down, and it didn't change the population. You still got 8 billion people. Their productivity is the same. And a lot of people talk about they don't like people staying home. Well, when you look at all the data we have, the total data set of all known data, half the every country's population has never worked. Hell, you got kids, you got elderly, you got school kids. Less than half of any tribe. Kind of like imagine the last 200,000 years. I'm sure when the men went out hunting a gazelle, the other half were at home in the hut and the fire, and so half the people never went out hunting, and it was more of a man thing anyway. And so the bottom line is, what you need to do is you need to come out of school and you need to own things that the government can't raise. When you own stocks and bonds, the whole thing's rigged to whatever the interest rates are.
Yeah.
And the Fed can't raise the interest rates because with $29 trillion in debt, it doesn't want to pay a nickel on every dollar per year.
Yeah, definitely not.
It wants to pay 0.1%. So the bottom line is you got to own a milk cow that gives you milk. You got to
Okay.
own a chicken that gives you eggs. You got to own your land and building and dental office. You have to own your means of production. And the minute you get caught up, oh, well, these internet stocks are going to go from 94 to 2000, even though 40% of the stocks had never made 1 penny in earning. Oh, yeah, they're worth $1 billion. And then the whole thing got. And now you got Tesla. I mean, the CEO, I love the CEO, but come on, he's a nut job. He's in there smoking pot on Joe Rogan. He tells everybody every day he started Tesla, and there's YouTube videos with the founders of Tesla. I mean, the company had been going on for years and had a car, and he thinks he's the founder. I mean, he keeps saying in a lecture, well, when I founded Tesla, like, dude, you didn't found Tesla. He's out there. And that's what you would expect of some visionary like that. He's not very tethered, but a 1,500 times price earnings ratio. And then look at this. In 2000, Amazon stock fell 95% for 2 months. That's when you got to load up. So what I am cash to the crash. And then what you have to do is here's my stocks. So I have my stocks, and I sold my house. I'm been putting away cash because he's multiple. Warren Buffett has a really interesting chart, and he calls it he taught me this in 1980. I went to Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska, and he was the Oracle of Omaha, and he loved the business professor, a little short Italian guy with long silver hair, just really neat guy. But anyway, he called it what did he call it? He called it the Buffett indicator. And basically what he's saying is that if you take all the economy, so the economy in the United States, just say for easy math, it's like what is the economy right now about? For easy math, we'll say 20 trillion. Okay, we'll say 20 trillion for easy math. The stocks of all the publicly traded companies within that country should be less than the GDP. Because number one, 85% of the people don't work for the Fortune 500. So 85% of the people work for 25 employees or less, doing less than $1 million a year. So how could the market value of the publicly traded stocks be worth more than the economy? So then the profits grow. When you start seeing the value of the market cap, when it's down about 70%, that's a good time to buy because it'll trend up towards the GDP. But once it gets over the GDP, I mean, just literally thinking. I mean, if it just keeps literally going up, eventually those companies would have more profit dollars than the entire GDP. How does that even make sense? How can you have more profit dollars than so it's completely crazy. A bubble. Yeah, and in my life, whenever it got to like 1.1 or 1.2 or 1.3, you knew we were in bubble territory and it was going to come down. Dude, it's over 2. It's over 2.
It's a big bubble. It's ready to burst.
It's the big, and then the stock market's about $20 trillion. The bond market's about $40 trillion. In my life, when I lived through the bubbles of 80, 87, Y2K and Lehman's, if stocks were too crazy, you could sell them and put them in bonds or real estate. When real estate got crazy, you could sell your real estate and buy it in bonds or stocks, or you always could take something out of a crazy basket. All the baskets are completely insane. And then here's the narcissistic thing coming out of America. America is the insignificant country of the world. I mean, 7 out of 8 humans live in the Eastern Hemisphere. We're on the wrong side. The Americas only have 1 billion people. Africa has 1 billion people. India has 1.3 billion. China has 1.4 billion. If America if all the Americas just like sunk and went underwater, I don't even know if the other side of the world would know about it for like 3 days. They're like, hey, what happened to those people on the other side? I don't know. So we need to fly. So the bottom line, it doesn't really even, we're totally insignificant in that range. And where was I going to that point? America always thinks that all the recessions are theirs. They're narcissistic. They think it's all about them. The Great Depression was their shenanigans. So was all the shenanigans. But you know what? Deng Xiaoping, Mao Zedong did the communist revolution in China. And then Deng Xiaoping was the one who said, you know what? these capitalists, they're getting rich. Let's
Hmm.
adopt communism and capitalism. That was 1980 when I got out of high school. And now it's 40 years later, and they built the biggest economy in the world. They've never had a recession. They've never had a
Wow.
correction. And they have, our $29 trillion in debt. They have like $38 trillion just in real estate debt. And
Wow.
and when I got my MBA school in 1998, that was 22 years ago, they were
Hmm.
telling about how that bubble was going to pop any minute, any minute, any minute. And that any minute just went to the next year, the next year, the next decade, 2 decades later. And now I'm finally 59 and I finally am seeing this thing Evergrande. But let me tell you this. Every American thinks it's all about America and Wall Street and the Federal Reserve. Dude, you're only 4% of the country. You're on the wrong side of the earth. You're on the other side, the side no one cares about. But I'll tell you what, if that Chinese economy falls over, and it looks like it's in a free fall right now, it looks like it fell over. He's got to do this because right now in China, I've been to China. In fact, I should move to China. You know why? Because you know who gets the hottest girl in China?
Who's that?
The man that has a house and a car and a job. I mean, you could be the best looking, nicest singer, athlete guy in the world. And if you don't own a house, those Chinese women don't even give you a second chance. But you go over there at 60 years old and you buy a house and a car and all that. So all these men have to have a house, and they're buying these real estate bubble because what the government does, they always break it first. So what China did is like in Israel.
Hmm.
Nobody in Israel is allowed to own land.
Hmm.
I mean, what the hell? No one. I mean, that's total communism, just like China. And then China will say, okay, well, nobody can own land, but we'll just barely add another little piece where you can live on. So they control the supply and demand. And then it's a 99-year lease. So they have to build these things 50 stories tall. And then everything's fixed. Everything's fixed so that the real estate developer gets rich, the government gets rich, everybody gets rich. But this boy is doing everything he can because he can't get a girl until he has a house. And it's all the amount of they have 40% of their entire savings wealth of the country in these houses. So if that bubble pops, I'm on. Holy gamoly. That's going to make Lehman's Day look like a sneeze.
Wow.
It's going to be good. So these are crazy times. So
Yeah.
let's say it's the craziest of times. But
Hmm.
by the way, I'm going to say something that probably is the most sounds crazy, but of all the presidents I lived through, I still think the last president we had, Trump, was the best one I've ever lived through. And you know why?
Why is that?
He's the only president in my lifetime that didn't start another damn war. I mean, America has been at war from
That's true.
1776 to 2020. Only 20 years have we not been at war. And I mean, they get out of World War II and they immediately go to North Korea. Then it's Vietnam, and then it's
Hmm.
Iraq. Afghanistan was 20 years long, and the people thought we got out of there too quickly. Biden didn't have, they wanted Biden to have a 20-year plan about how to get that truth. I mean, Americans
Crazy.
are the most violent. I mean, the only people, America is the most violent. They have 600 military bases around the world, and you can't afford it. This is exactly what happened to the Roman Empire. They got overextended. They had military and troops everywhere, and the whole thing went bankrupt. And we're doing it again. 1,500 years later, we're doing it again. We're overextended. We need to bring all that military base home. Social Security, Medicaid. You wouldn't even need Medicaid or dental insurance or health insurance if you didn't have the customs agents and Ellis Island not letting anyone else. You could throw away Medicare and Medicaid and dental insurance in an hour if you open back up Ellis Island, and all those Mexican dentists down there on the boarding came up to Arizona instead of the people in Phoenix driving 3 hours to go see them for half the price. You'd have cardiologists moving from India, Pakistan, you name it. I mean, so what the government does, they always break it, and then they tell you that they can solve it if you give them half their money. I mean, it's just a
Yeah.
total racket. Basically the mob started it in the Roman Empire. A lot of
Hmm.
people say that it's Sicilian. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Roma was where the whole damn thing started, long before, Sicily and all those other places. But it's just all their mob tactics. So when that shit hits the fan, what's going to be really great is when you own your own dental office.
Mhm.
And let's say everybody quits. And let's say that it just the worst case scenario. And now I got a toothache. And let's say it's a zombie apocalypse and everybody's
Mhm.
just trying to eat dead people's brain. Some guy's gonna walk up to your mom with a bucket of dead brain and say, "Hey, I'll trade you my zombie brains if you fix this toothache." And if you can't pull it or get him out of tooth, if you can't pull the tooth or do a root canal and get him out of pain, you're not a doctor. I mean,
Mhm.
I saw that during all the recessions. Like, go back to 2008 and Y2K.
Mhm.
86 dentists went bankrupt in the Y2K deal. 4
Wow.
or 5 of them were in my house crying, and I was looking at the numbers. And here's what scared me: they became cosmetic dentists. They were doing. You'd come in there and they charge 15,000 an arch, and they take out all your amalgams, crown. They take out everything,
Mhm.
and then they'd redo it with Ivoclar
Mhm.
porcelain, and it'd be like a $25,000-$50,000 smile makeover.
Yeah.
And that market
Mm.
just died instantly. And now people come with a toothache and they're like, "Oh, I can't pull a tooth.
Yeah, they
Oh,
they
I
only do
can't do a root."
cosmetics, so how are they
Yeah.
gonna
I mean, dentistry is started in pain. And if you don't have, if you can't get a person out of pain by pulling his damn tooth or doing a root canal, and if you don't own your own means of production, let's say you work for me
Mhm.
and I pay my doctors 25% of production, and
Okay.
my business is cut in half. I had 2 dentists, and I just cut in half. Well, I wasn't born to provide for you. I mean, I'm not your mama. I'm not your daddy. I mean, what was I born to create jobs for Amon? The
So I'm
first
I'm
thing
fired at that point.
I know. And then you're gonna go home and you're gonna get out your world's violin. "Mommy, I didn't have the balls to buy my own dental office." Oh, but you bought your own car. You own your own car. Oh, you bought your own house. So you own the land and building under your house and you own your car, but you don't own your job. No,
Mhm.
I wanted to own my consumption house and my consumption car, but I didn't want to own my means of production, which is a word socialism came from in the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. And so the bottom line is, why do you own your own home? When I see a dentist and he owns his home and
Mhm.
it's like 4,000 square feet, but he
Mhm.
rents an office 1,000 square feet. I mean, you can't fix stupid. How do you own the land and building of something 4 times bigger to burn up dollars,
Yeah,
and
and
you
not the
only
thing that
own the
brings you in
little thing
dollars.
that makes the dollars? I mean, what the richest of the rich do, and like they'll be back home in Phoenix, and they always come to me like they always want sympathy, that I should feel sorry for them. And so the deal is, you want to own your own means of production.
Mhm.
And like would you rather during the zombie apocalypse have to go to the grocery store every day and buy a gallon of milk that's getting more expensive, or would you like to be like my son Eric? He has his own dairy cow in
Oh,
his
wow.
in Beeville, Texas. All 4 of my boys have their own chickens and roosters.
That's
And when I'm
awesome.
with my 8 grandchildren, it's so funny because you get up in the morning because the cock-a-doodle-doo thing,
It's your
and you walk
alarm.
out there and you get your eggs, and then you go to Daphne the goat, or you go to Ribeye the cow, but it's self-sustainable. And I'm not saying, get off the grid and be self-sustainable and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about owning your own means of production. And
Okay.
by the way, every dentists are they're inherently lazy, because all animals are lazy. When when a when a lion gets done eating a gazelle, it just lays around for 3 days and
Mhm.
sleeps. Okay. And when you sit there and when dentists start making money, they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to make it temporary. I'll prep the tooth and then you make the temporary." And some assistants in there for half an hour. And then the next patient, he'll like numb up, and then he'll go back to the office for 20 minutes while they make the temporary or take the impressions or pack. I mean, they're just late. They don't do any hygiene.
Yeah.
But if you want to make nothing but net, you sit there and you do all that. So you do all of that yourself. So the dentist with the lowest overhead. And by the way, this isn't an American story. I've lectured in 50 countries. I've seen this play out, and from Singapore to Australia to Brazil. But when I see a dentist and they're taking home like $300,000, $400,000 a year in a blue collar area. They have
Mhm.
like 2 employees. They have like 4 chairs, 2 employees. One's at the front, one's the back, and
Mhm.
they're doing cleanings, exams, fillings, because
They're
labor is
working
your
hard.
Yeah, because labor is your number one cost. So I would just say own your means of production, and instead of being the excess staff that's going to be let go, I mean, own your land, own your building. If all the prices doubled, the Earth isn't going to go from an 8,000 mile diameter to 16,000.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, even with this damn pandemic that came out. Well, look at humans' darkest days. World War
Mhm.
One and World War Two. You know what I'm most proud about Homo sapiens during World War One and World War Two? Do you realize that at the peak of World War One and World War Two, our population was still growing? We were still making more babies than we were annihilating, and all
Wow.
the machinery was to kill everyone. So humans are as tenacious as a cockroach, an ant. I mean, humans. One human equals about 1 million ants. And ants and humans have the same biomass. So does cockroaches and beetles and things like that. But just own your own means of production. You
Mhm.
can't predict the future. You can't predict the economy. I just saw a study the other day in journalism where they went back and they took all the newspapers of all the countries involved in World War One and World War Two the year before the war started.
Mhm.
No sign that there was a war around the corner. The Arab uprising, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the stock market crashes. I mean, just none of these things were ever predicted. So you can't predict the future. The future doesn't even exist. It's one day at a time. But I'll tell you this, man, get mean and lean. Own your damn land and building. Why do you have to have a hygienist do the cleanings? Why do you have to have assistants do the temporaries? Get your overhead low, and you can get your overhead down to 50%. It should be rent 5%, labor 20, lab 10, supplies 5, miscellaneous another 5. But man, if someone comes in and gives you $1 and you can't put 2 quarters in your back pocket, and all you can do is put a dime in your back pocket, I mean, it sounds like you didn't go to dental school. You went to I need to create a job school.
Yeah.
And you look in the mirror every night and say, well, I feel so good because like I feel good. I mean, I have 50 employees. I've always felt good that I'm provide jobs for 50 people with healthcare and 401ks and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But don't let it confuse you. That's what I need to make a shitload of money. And if you can't get your overhead down to 50%, in fact, I just want to say, here's 4 dentists that make $25,000 a month at 40% overhead. You only have to do 41,667 to make 25. Obviously, at 50% overhead, you only need to do 50 grand to make 25. But at 65, when I got out of school in 87, the average overhead was 50%. And to your question about insurance deals, they just keep lowering the fees. So when I got out of school in 87, average overhead is 50%. Today it's 65%. So now you got to do $71,000 of dentistry to make 25,000.
Mhm.
And at least 20% of the dental offices have 80% overhead. So you got to do $125,000 of dentistry to make 25. Now here's the point I'm making. Always think of your worst procedure. Imagine you had to make 25 grand a month to pay, you needed 25 grand. Would you rather do $125,000 of MOD posterior composites, or would you rather do 40,000? I mean, I don't know how people can do it. I mean, all
Yeah.
that stuff has to be paid for. And they always want to. And another thing about dentists that's weird, like you can talk to 100 oncologists, they're never going to say, oh man, I got a laser, I got a new ultrasound. They never talk about their equipment. You go sit down with a dentist and you say, what's your name? Well, I have a CAD cam. And so look at a CAD cam. You take an Impergum impression for $15. You send it down the street to Van Hook, who's been making crowns longer than any of us, and he's going to charge $150.
Mhm.
Here's how dentist thinks. Oh, well, shit, I got an idea. I mean, I schedule that appointment for 30 minutes. I numb them up. I take an impression for the temporary. I pack a 01. I prep the tooth. I make the temporary to make sure, you work out all your problems temporary. You got clearance, all that kind of stuff like that. And then you take the impression. No. Screw that. I'm going to buy $145,000 CAD cam, and then screw Van Hook. I mean, he's made 1 million crowns for 30 years. My dental assistant has never made one. So I'm going to start flying her to Scottsdale and let the Scottsdale Center and Samir Prairie teach her how to do all this CIRAC shit and training. And their overhead just drifts from 50, 60, 70, 80. Look at implants.
Mhm.
Before implants, oral surgeons all had a 40% overhead. And now the oral surgeons that only do the implants,
Mhm.
I mean, only do the extractions, exodontia, they're still at 40%. But all the oral surgeons that got into implants, their overhead drifted up to 60%. So
Wow.
the price of an extraction and price of an implant doesn't have the same margin. So, man, you got to keep one eye on the customer patient and one eye on cost. And
Mhm.
God gave you a brain, and your job is to use your brain to make everything. Here's playing with a full hand. Is it faster? Is it easier? Is it higher quality? Is it
Mhm.
lower cost and smaller? And here's what it does say. Well, it's not lower cost because it's special and it's real high quality and it's bigger and it's complicated and
Shinier.
it takes longer. It's like, dude, if it's not faster, easier, higher quality, lower cost, and smaller, you're just making noise until
Mhm.
someone with a full hand will mow over your business. Now, here's another thing you got to remember. When I was born, the average age of a publicly traded company in America was a senior citizen. It was 65. When I got out of college, it had dropped down to like 25. Now I'm a grandpa. It's under 20, dude. We've gone from the
Wow.
average American company was 65 years old. You're getting killed within 10 years. So, oh, absolutely. Raise your prices,
Mhm.
take longer, go slower, make it bigger, make it fuck yeah, do it all. Because you're going to be bankrupt in about 8 seconds by someone playing with the full hand. You don't
Yeah.
need a CAD cam. You don't need a laser. You know what laser stands for in dental school? They told you it stands for light amplification, stimulation, emission, and radiation. It actually stands for losing all savings equals reality. I mean, they're at the convention selling a $50,000 laser, and I'm like, dude, couldn't you do that with like a one blade for
Yeah.
one
So
freaking dollar
do you really
and
need
then
it?
just throw that thing away? I mean, my God, or give it to your nephew that's a cutter.
That's an interesting point, because I know you talked about this in your other videos too, where a dentist doesn't know how much their break even point is, or when, if they're doing a filling and you ask them how much did you just make doing that two surface filling, and they couldn't tell you because they don't look at that type of stuff.
Oh yeah, every dentist I walk in there. In fact, I walked into a dental office on the way here today, and I walked up the two girls at the front. I just said, I just got one question. What's your break even point for today? What do we have to do today? I mean, you're only open 16 days a month, just for Monday through Thursday, 16 days a month. Everybody's worked here for 10 years. There's no
Mhm.
fluctuations in rent, mortgage, equipment, build out, computer, insurance, malpractice. What's your break even point today? Staring at a deer. Nobody had a clue.
Yeah,
Nobody has a clue.
it's
And
important stuff.
insurance is going to be the kiss of death, because what they're doing is they're saying, well, I just want to be really, really, really busy and not make any money.
Mhm.
And what we've seen during this pandemic is, man, if you saw one patient for a crown in the morning for 1,000 and you had 50% overhead and you could put 5 Benjamins in your pocket and walk home and hand them to your wife, you're going to have a great afternoon. But
Yeah.
no, you want to stay there all day and see 20 other people for nothing and go home and say, I'm really busy. I had a big practice. I got 2,000 patients. We did $1 million. Yeah, dude, but you netted nothing. So it's nothing but net. Do you know your overhead? Do you know your break even point? Do you know your BAM numbers, your bare ass minimum numbers before you enter the profit zone every day? And so here's my takeaway: specialize, be an owner operator.
Mhm.
Own your own land and building, own shit the government can't print. And then when there's a downturn, you can get rid of the other people. But here's the thing. I'm going to leave on this because I
Sure.
got a very, very, very important meeting at
Sure.
1 o'clock. Here's the deal. Warren Buffett, 1980. I'm at Creighton University. We're given 10 extra credit points if we go to his lecture. And I'm all excited. And here walks out this old man with, I can't believe he's like still living. He's like 90 now. This is like, he would have been 60. So, you're a freshman in college. He looks like
Yeah.
an old man. And he's talking about all this bullshit. Finally raised my hand because I couldn't take his stupidity anymore. And I'll say, are you going to get to the nifty 50? Kodak and Polaroid. And he's like, I don't own any of the nifty 50. He says, Howard, I take a 5x7 business card and a number 2 pencil. And if you can't explain to me what your business is and how you make money on a 5x7 business card, I don't believe you. I don't know how Polaroid works. I don't know. And now he's saying, I don't know how Microsoft or any of this stuff works. He just buys solid businesses. And if he buys a farm for $1 and every year it makes $2 of corn, that's all he needs to know. He doesn't need to know all this fancy
It's
stuff.
only the important information, right?
But I said to him as a joke, I said, well, you're at Creighton and we got a dental school, a med school, and a law school. Those are the 3 best ones around. I said, would you be a lawyer, are a physician or a dentist? And he goes, well, I definitely wouldn't go into healthcare. He goes, never go into anything that's high capital intensive and someone else sets your fee. He says, when I own Geico, if I need to double Geico, I just need to double the number of cubicles of someone in there dialing for dollars. You double a hospital, got to build a whole other hospital, MRIs, CAT scans, a whole 9 yards. He goes, it's the most capital intensive business. And then someone else sets your fees. Medicaid, Medicare. When the physicians got John F. Kennedy to start Medicare, they got in bed with the government. I don't know. My dad told me if you get in bed with anyone, you're going to get screwed. Do not do that. And they got in bed with the government. And now here it is, 60 years later, and dentists are trying to get in bed, trying to get Medicare to cover dentistry. And all it does is puts an iron lid fee, and then they're counterfeiting. They're the ones running fiscal deficits of $5 trillion last year. So inflationary prices rise, but they got the fee cap, and they know exactly when you enter the profit zone on the macro numbers, and they pay you. And I can prove it to you. When I got out of school in 87, Cigna, right out here, owned their own dental office. They said, well, shit, if we're going to sell the dental insurance, we got to make money providing it. So they went and got Herb from the AT Still Dental School, and he's running it, and he's running a quality operation. And the accountants would say, but we're losing money. Because, well, your fees, I mean, we're doing quality. And it took Kaiser Permanente closed down all their dental offices for Oregon, where they kept 9 offices. And then in Phoenix, Cigna closed all their dental offices. And I know those CEOs, and they all told me that some of them, even on my own show, they'd say, well, I mean, shit, if we did that root canal, it costs $1. We only have to pay him on 50 cents, and that guy will do it because he doesn't know it costs him $1.
Yeah.
And he just lost 50 cents on it because you don't know your prices. You don't know your costs.
Exactly.
Like, you'll sit down to do 2 fillings, and I'll say, okay, you're in this operatory, you schedule it for an hour. You're in here with your trusty Friday dental assistant. Is this, what does this operatory cost? What's the overhead? You put a patient in this operatory for an hour. What does that cost? I mean, does it cost $90, $190, $290? There's not a dentist on earth that can tell you that. But that's why my first employee was a bookkeeper. I got bookkeepers, comptrollers, account. I even have an auditor lady who comes in half a day a month just to make sure my accounting team is not stealing from me.
That's smart. That's stuff that no one really talks about, right? They just assume everything's going to be fine. But
man, I assume that everybody is a wild ass Homo sapien animal. And they believe they're not animals. They believe they're made in God's image. And I'm convinced after 59 years that I'm the only normal person on earth.
You've seen it all. So
I've come to this conclusion.
Well, thank you so much, Howard, for your time. And I know we talked about a lot.
It's an honor to be on your show, Amon. And if you ever want to do it again, just call me out. I could talk dentistry with you for 40 days and 40 days.
I could talk forever. I feel like you have a lot of knowledge, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. I think our followers would really, really enjoy that. So is there any closing remarks you want to give before we sign off here?
Gosh darn, I don't have any closing remarks. Just all I'm going to say is know your numbers, own your land and building, own your cows and chickens, own your means of productions. Don't be someone's expendable employee that is going to be shedded during a downturn. Specialize. I mean, I'd rather you know everything about orthodontics than know a little bit about TMJ to pediatric dentistry. So if you're an owner operator and you specialize, and then demographics matter. If demographics don't matter, then go set up in Afghanistan, and then call me back in 20 years. So when you see a dentist on every corner, and then you go 1 hour south of here to Eloy, and the whole town doesn't have a dentist. I remember back in 87, the only people that listened to me were Mormons, because Mormons, they all had at least one kid in dental school. Usually they graduated with a kid, walking, one in the oven, and you knew his wife was going to have like 29 kids and live in a shoe. And they wanted to get into like Scottsdale. I said, no, dude. There's a dentist on every corner in Scottsdale. Every house an acre. There's no dentist. Wow. But down there in Maricopa, it's growing 90 homes a month. There's not one dentist down there. The only people that go there is the Mormons, because they already had their family. They'd go down there. They'd get 125 new patients a month, became millionaires. I mean, so many of them. Demographics matter. Right now in the United States, if you can get from about 2 hours away from where a Southwest Airlines plane takes off, there's no dentist. And remember the
Wow.
small town, the average dentist, there's 2,000 people. You go to a town of 1,000, the draw's 1,000. And if you get in a Walmart parking lot, that's baller money. When you go to some nowhere shithole town in the middle of Kansas and you're in the Walmart parking lot, they drive an hour in their F-150s to go to Walmart.
Wow.
And then when they get to Walmart, they're like, oh, we got a dentist. Oh my God. So demographics matter. And by the way, demographics aren't going to matter because we're this far away from driverless cars. I mean, if I was practicing Eloy, I could set my alarm for 6. All I got to do is go crawl in the back seat of some electric car, set my Apple, and then an hour later, boom, you're in Eloy.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be sitting there driving the damn car. You're not a monkey without a tail anymore. So with driverless cars, demographics matter. Own your means of production, own your land, own your building, know your numbers. And if you have any more follow-up questions, give me a call. I'm on. It's an honor to be on your show.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Howard. Thank you guys for watching. I really hope you liked that video. I know there was a lot to unpack in that, so I hope to do another interview with Howard soon. If there's anything else you wanted me to talk about or any questions you had, please let me know in the comments section below. And if you haven't already, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you in the next video.